Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We are going to give it until 6:03 and then we'll get started. All right. Well, welcome everybody. As a reminder, this meeting has Spanish language interpretation available. In order to enable interpretation settings, you will want to navigate to the globe or ellipses in your meeting controls and select the language that you'd like to hear. Even for those of you who aren't needing the Spanish translation, to hear the content of the meeting, I would encourage you to go down and select English so that you can still hear the Spanish language translation if there's a comment. Nora, hand it over to you.
Muy buenas noches y bienvenidos a la reunión de esta noche. Como siempre tenemos interpretación al español y para poder acceder a la interpretación, si ustedes están en un teléfono celular, lo que van a hacer es que van a encontrar tres puntitos, parecen unos puntos suspensivos en la parte de abajo, en la derecha, a la derecha de su teléfono. De ahí van a, por favor, a pulsar esto y van a ver el globo de interpretación, van a escoger el lenguaje de preferencia, el español. Debajo de esto hay un botón que les puede dar la opción de silenciar el audio original si eso es lo que quieren hacer. Y finalmente, cuando tengan seleccionado las cosas como las quieren, van a irse a la parte de arriba de la pantalla de su teléfono, parte de arriba en la parte derecha, y van a apretar donde dice Done o D-O-N-E. Si están accediendo por el computador, entonces van a buscar el globo de interpretación en la parte de abajo, van a escoger su idioma de preferencia y van a poder estar con nosotros escuchando la reunión en español. Gracias. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Nora. I'll get you in the interpretation channel and over to you, Catherine.
Thank you. Well, welcome everybody to the Washington Area Program of Projects. We're really excited for you to be here tonight. We have a lot of information to share with you and also to hear back from you on the work that's moving forward. I'm Catherine Archuleta. For those of you who I haven't met, I think I've met almost all of you now. And I'm going to turn it over to the presenters in just a moment. But I want to remind you that there's two ways of communicating with us. Just to raise your hand and let us know that you'd like to ask a question or make a statement, or else you could use the chat. I'm working off a small iPad, so Chris and Kat are going to help me monitor the chat room. So we may just stop you for a minute at some point and say we want to return to the chat for a question. So let's move forward, and Walter's going to run us through the North Central Community Transportation Network update. Thank you, Walter.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. Appreciate it. My name is Walter Scheib. I'm a multimodal transportation planner with Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. And I'm also the planning project manager for North Central Community Transportation Network. This is a new project. We're still finalizing the project scope at this point, and actually haven't even kicked the project off yet. So we wanted to give this group a preview of the process and gather your feedback while we're still developing the project. And then the goal is to kick off by mid 2023 is what we're looking at. So on this slide here, you can see this is an overview of DOTI's Community Transportation Network Program. But you can see on the map that there are 3 other CTNs beyond North Central. Those other 3, Northwest, Central, and South Central, those kicked off back in 2020. And now North Central Community Transportation Network will be phase 2 of the CTN program. And it's focused on the Globeville and Elyria Swansea neighborhoods. Community transportation networks are really aimed at designing and constructing a complete transportation network that's safe for all users and provides more options to get around the city, including better options for walking, rolling, taking public transit, or biking. Next slide, please. North Central CTN will look to improve multimodal transportation options in the Globeville and Elyria Swansea neighborhoods by designing and improving multimodal connections that really improve how you're able to get around the neighborhoods, and then also how you're able to connect to nearby areas outside of Globeville and Elyria Swansea as well. The CTN process will build on multiple previous planning efforts that have happened in these neighborhoods and have identified transportation needs, including the Washington Area Connectivity Prioritization Study, which was completed just last year in 2022. North Central CTN will work with the community to really prioritize top multimodal project needs and then bring those top projects through the design and construction process. This slide also mentions a few of the multimodal improvements that will be installed through this program, and those include sidewalks, intersection improvements, transit stop improvements, and bikeways. And then on the next slide here, we can get a closer look at what some of these examples entail. So here are some examples of the multimodal improvements that will be considered and installed as part of this program. First, in terms of pedestrian improvements, really looking to continue to fill sidewalk gaps in the neighborhoods by building more new sidewalks, and then also improving crossings at unsafe intersections by increasing visibility for pedestrians, and also ensuring that measures like what's shown on the bottom left here. It's a rectangular rapid flashing beacon that ensures more visibility for pedestrians at intersections and ensures that cars stop for when people are crossing. In terms of transit stop improvements, these include increased comfort at bus stops, so better seating and shade from the sun and shelter from the wind, for example. And then also improved accessibility in the bottom middle picture here. Improved accessibility for boarding buses for those who may be in a wheelchair or pushing a stroller, for example. So just being able to easily get directly from the sidewalk onto the bus with minimal issues. And then also third, the bicycle network build out. So continuing to build a complete bike network that includes high comfort bike facilities that are either separated from traffic or on local streets where the bikeway is designed in a way that slows traffic and reduces the number of vehicles traveling on the roadway to really help make it a more comfortable area to bike. One thing to also mention is that bikeways also include safety elements that benefit all users, whether you're biking, walking, or driving. All the traffic calming will really work to both traffic calming and then also improving intersection safety. On the next slide here. So this is a map of missing sidewalks and narrow sidewalks in the study area. I mentioned that a lot of previous planning work has happened to identify locations where sidewalks don't exist, which are shown in red, and then also areas where sidewalks are currently less than 5 feet wide or too narrow. Those are shown in orange. So this is an example of some of that previous work that's already been done. And then after the project kicks off, our team will be working with the community to prioritize some of these top sidewalk gaps for where new sidewalks should be installed moving forward. And then on the next slide, this map shows a similar gaps in the bike network. And I know there's a lot going on here, but the green dashed lines are recommended bikeways that already have funding for construction in one way or another. So they'll be already constructed in the coming years. And then the purple dashed lines are bike network gaps that this program or this project, North Central Community Transportation Network, will further explore. And one thing that I'll also mention here is beyond what's already shown on the map, we'll also be working with the community to ask what's currently missing from the map in terms of sidewalk improvements and bikeway network improvements. For example, our team just went out on a field visit last week with Councilwoman City Baca, and she showed us a potential neighborhood loop for Elyria and Swansea that would for biking in those neighborhoods, and that would connect green spaces and schools, rec centers, library, that sort of thing. But some of the corridors that she talked about actually aren't on this map currently. So we'd also be working to incorporate other feedback like that as well. Then on the next slide, this is just a sort of a general project timeline for once the work kicks off. As I mentioned, we're aiming for mid-2023. So first work will be that planning and prioritization work starting in the middle of this year and then moving through the end of 2023. So it's really working to narrow that full list of projects to top priorities, and then bring concepts of what those new projects would look like and how they would actually potentially look on the roadway corridors, and then get more feedback from the community at that point. And then moving ahead into 2024, this is when we do further project design work and development of more detailed engineering plans and that sort of thing, and then gather community feedback at that point as well. And then we're aiming to begin construction of these specific community transportation network projects in 2025. So the one last thing that I will note is sort of independent of this community transportation network process, there's also other sidewalk, intersection, and bikeway improvements that will be installed during this time frame that were previously developed before this project kicked off. So this is sort of following up and continuing to build on the multimodal transportation network in Globeville and Elyria Swansea. So that's all I had. I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have, and thank you very much for your time.
Hi, any questions? Thank you.
Yeah, this is Adrian. Can I ask a question, please?
You bet, Adrian, go ahead.
Yes. I've been on these calls before, and I probably asked the same question. What is being done to reduce the volume of traffic from Washington up 51st to Broadway?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if I'm not sure if I know there's folks from the Washington plan that are on the line. If they would like to potentially jump on and ask that question, I would feel free. Like I said, we're still sort of scoping this project and haven't kicked off yet. But if there's still additional concerns on Washington Street, that's something that we'd be happy to incorporate into our work. But
it's 51st. I live on 51st. So, yep. And I actually feel like I live in the armpit of Globeville because I've got I-25 on the west side and I've got I-70 on the south side. And if you put more traffic on 51st, which is, I mean, it's pretty well, there's quite a lot of traffic on 51st anyway from Washington. But if you put more traffic on there, there'll be more noise, more vibration, and more pollution. And it's going to be horrendous. You know, and I mean, along with property values, it's going to be horrendous for our health and our neighborhood because, you know, we already suffer from pollution from the highways and because we live in Globeville. And I bring this up every time because I'm trying to get the volume of traffic on 51st reduced so that it is not increased and it is actually for access only. And I'm hoping that you know, we're having these meetings so that you will pay attention to what the residents of Globeville are requesting. And not
Adrian?
just, yes.
Adrian, Jim is going to be with us later on, and we'll talk a little bit more about 51st and update there. So can we move on just about the CTN?
Well,
Would that
yeah,
be
well,
all
this is the kind of response I get every time that I'm, you know, yeah, we'll talk about it later. Okay, I'll
right?
please
It's on
keep
the
me in
agenda.
mind.
as you saw.
All right.
So thank you.
I have a
And we
comment.
appreciate
I have
that
a
you keep
comment.
bringing it up. I'm not
Yeah, I have
trying
a
to shut you
comment.
off. I just
Okay, I
want you
have
to
a
be
comment.
able to have the right person in front of you. So it's after the Washington Street update. So
I have a comment.
yes, please.
Yeah, well, going back to Walter, what are you doing about green vegetation and combating the carbon monoxide along Washington Street?
Yeah, so, hey, so, Catherine, just maybe I can just interrupt for a second.
Sure.
Walter, just to be respectful of the first speaker, Walter was talking about upcoming project on pedestrian improvements and bike facilities. So throughout and on all the purple lines that you're seeing here. So maybe what we'll do, if we can just hold those questions, if anyone has anything specific to Walter's project, then we could bring those up right now. And then if we just hold that, we'll move to Washington next, okay?
Well,
Maria,
what are you doing? What are you doing for vegetation for the purple projects and the green projects? I'll just
Well,
expand the question.
right, but the purple projects are not about vegetation as much as they are about mobility. But
Well, I
Walter
understand that,
can
but
jump in there.
the design portion of that, that's part of the mobility, multimodal
So-
transportation area.
Yeah. Walter,
Yeah,
go
Adrian, we're
ahead.
not trying to ignore we're not trying to ignore your question. We just want to be sure that we have the right person that for you to ask the questions. And also we have some information to update you that may answer some of the questions you're asking right now. And that's why if there's any questions that you have specific to the CTN, and then when we do the 51st Street update, I think you'll get some information and as well as the Washington Street. So we're not ignoring it. It's later on in the agenda, and we just would like to give an opportunity for anybody else to ask questions about the CTN.
And one thing I will say is for the purple lines on the map that we're looking at additional improvements for, we are in our project scope, we will be including green infrastructure. So there will be, like, for example, if there's new traffic circles put in to do traffic calming, or concrete bulb outs at intersections and things like that are sometimes just concrete. We're looking to have those be more permeable surfaces where water can drain better, and then also to be able to plant trees and those other things in there. So that is something that we're definitely considering. So I
Thank you.
appreciate the feedback on
Those are the
that.
comments that I was looking for.
Yep.
That you were prevented from answering. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Walter. Any
Yep.
other questions or comments?
It looks like Maria has a question.
Marie.
Okay, thank you. Maria?
Sí, yo tengo una pregunta. No sé si pueda contestármela él o tenga que esperar por otra persona, pero quiero saber nada más. Nosotros estamos trabajando con un proyecto en la 4995 Washington. Van a hacer un desarrollo de departamentos. Entonces, estamos mirando que no nos están dando entrada para el edificio, ya sea si tenemos la biblioteca o si tenemos aparte una tienda de mandado. Entonces, yo quiero saber si no pueden considerar hacer una entrada en un lado del edificio por la Washington, porque observando los planos solamente tenemos entrada por la 51 y realmente necesitamos una entrada por la Washington adentro hacia el edificio. Entonces, esa es mi pregunta. La ciudad parece que rechazó haber entradas ahí, pero yo quiero saber si lo pueden considerar, porque realmente sí necesitamos la entrada esa para la biblioteca, para el mercado, para diferentes lugares del edificio, porque de lo contrario tuvieran que rodear toda la Washington hasta la 51. Entonces, nos gustaría saber eso. No sé quién sea la que pueda contestar mi pregunta, pero esa es mi pregunta. Gracias.
Thank you, Maria. I'll just jump in really quickly. For everybody else's context, I believe Maria's talking about the development at 4995 Washington Street. It's a new affordable housing development. We definitely don't have somebody who can go into that detail or consider that on the call today, but Maria, I will follow up with you to make sure that you're connected to get that answered.
Thank you, Chris. Any other questions for Walter? If
Muchas
not, maybe-
gracias.
Gracias, Maria.
It looks like Anthony has his hand up.
Anthony?
Cool, I'll make this quick. I know you're trying to move on. I'm just curious, is there any possible development between 47th and 45th there along Washington? I noticed the bike lane just stops and there's a lot of traffic between, 7-Eleven and Conoco, that's 47th to 45th. And then continuing down south, through 38th and Walnut, the underpass there. So I was wondering if, there's any considerations for bike path there, just because there's so much traffic.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. And I think the line work on this map here for Washington Street actually doesn't capture the whole corridor, which does continue to go south into the areas that you mentioned. This is something that was pointed out to me recently, and like I said, we're still early on and making sure that we are capturing all the planned and recommended projects is something that we're still working on. So that's something that is being looked at because the challenges do continue south of 47th. So yes, that is something that will be included. So I appreciate the comment.
And I can jump in here for you.
Thanks, Mark.
So as we're about to jump into the Washington Street updates, what we're talking about is really phase one, where Washington Street is being built, is between 47th and 52nd. A future phase two that was called out in the planning study is 47th down south to the Platte River. So it is a future phase. It's just not currently funded for construction at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Maria, do you see the notice from Kyle in the chat about the public meeting at Project Angel Heart on the 23rd? Just wanted to draw your attention to that because that's also an opportunity to raise the concerns that you've raised tonight. Okay, so I'm going to move us on to Mark.
Sí, la estoy viendo. Gracias.
Okay, gracias. Mark, do you want to lead us into the Washington Street
Sure.
update?
Yeah, so hello everyone. So I'm Mark Gonzalez. I've been here the last few months, giving you all updates on Washington Street from 47th to 52nd. So that is the active design that we're pushing forward and getting ready for construction. You can jump to the next slide, Kat. So just kind of a few, not a ton of updates today, other than some important updates on public meetings. Really is kind of the biggest thing. But so just kind of high overview on where we are in the schedule, our ongoing steps that we're doing, coordinating with business owners and property owners along the corridor, what we're trying to do for some of the utilities on the corridor. And then, we're going to talk some of the green space and kind of what we're trying to do in that, it's called the amenity zone, but some of that green space there next to the sidewalk and what that's going to look like. So first off, just kind of the project schedule is generally, we're on track. So what we're trying to say is summer 25 is when we're looking to start construction for Washington Street. We're working on finalizing some of our design constraints now. We gave a lot of updates last month. And so we just kind of keep a higher level this month and just kind of we're gearing to summer 25 for construction for Washington Street. So some of the things that we're doing is we're reaching out to a public business owners and property owners along the corridor Washington Street touches, over 50 businesses as far as the bike lanes, the sidewalks, the green space, all along the corridor between 47th and 52nd. We're trying to minimize impacts to ongoing businesses, minimize impacts to property owners. We want this to be a big benefit and a boon. So we're reaching out and trying to connect with all the owners on the street. So if you own land, if you live on the land, we are currently reaching out. We're working through a process. There's a lot, but we are working through the process, trying to touch base with everyone, specifically who lives on the street, to ensure they know what's happening, to ensure that they're in the loop on the plans. One of the other major pieces that we're looking at doing is we're trying to underground all the utilities. So this is a main objective of the project, is we're going to try to bring all those poles, all those wires underground. That will do wonders to help clean up the street, make it look nicer, make it like feel better as we start bringing all those poles underground. So that is an active part of construction. It's a big part of coordinating with a lot of utilities, specifically Excel, Denver Water, etc. But we are actively working on trying to make sure that everything is brought below ground and done safely and done right. And then lastly, for those who are specifically interested in the green space, this is the cross section on the screen that we've been talking about over the last few months, where we're looking at an 8-foot amenity zone. 8 feet of green space there between the road and the sidewalk is the goal, for as much the corridor as we can. And we are seeking input on what this looks like. So this green space, we want input. We've heard this over and over. I mean, to our earlier questions, right? We know green space is a major priority, so we are prioritizing it as a project. We want to make sure it's something that can come in and can be done right and feel good for what's in the area. And so you've got a few chances to give us some feedback on getting a chance to sit down with us and some of the project team to talk about it. So February 9th, if you want to jump to the next slide, Kat. Oh, it's a little different. All right, so yeah, so February 9th, we're looking at a virtual meeting. So if you want to join in a virtual meeting, we're looking at February 9th from 6 to 7 p.m. We're going to send an invite via the CAG distribution list, and or anybody else who has signed up on the website that we have their emails. We're going to send out an invite. If you want to come, you'll get a chance to come to this meeting, where we'll be presenting like in-depth concepts. We'll show you examples of what we're looking at, what we're trying to do, and we're solely just seeking feedback on what you like, what you don't like, what fits with the corridor. And if virtual on the 9th doesn't work, we're also looking at an in-person meeting on February 10th at Prodigy Coffee from 9 to 10. So same thing, we're going to send out both chances via invite through the CAG email distribution list. So if you want to come talk green space with us, we're going to try to provide that space that we can hear your input, hear what you want, and try to show you some concepts of what we're currently looking at in our current stage in design. So we're not done with the design. We are really just getting it going. And so we want
I can add in something, Mark, there is that these two public meetings are a direct result of the comments that were made at our last CAG meeting. Beth, Mark, and others heard very clearly that you want to have a longer conversation, and our meetings on Thursday nights don't offer that opportunity. So we've created 2 more where the only topic of discussion will be the amenity zone, and Mark will be presenting ideas and seeking your input and into those plans. So we really want you to take advantage. We heard what you said last meeting. And Mark and his team are prepared to spend time with you and find out your interest and your ideas on how this amenity zone can be constructed.
I got a question for Mark.
Yeah, let's hear it, Armando.
Yeah, so on this meeting on the February 9th, are you just going to talk about vegetation or the design? What specifically are you going to tunnel down on?
Yeah, so you're gonna get a chance to talk to whether like ornamental trees, like what types of trees you guys like, what types of trees you don't like. We're gonna talk about, do you like benches in the space, outside the space? We're gonna focus in on that 8-foot amenity zone, right? That green space, and what it's gonna look like, how soil might drain through it, if you want to get into that detail. I mean, these 2 meetings are solely for talking green space. So we're going to present some ideas, and then it's really as much feedback as you guys want to start digging into. We'll carry discussion that way.
Okay, y'all, you're talking on the surface. What about the type of vegetation? Like, you know, I keep coming back to the topic about vegetation that combats carbon monoxide. Are you going to go down that deep?
So we'll present ideas on types of trees and types of grass. If you have other ideas on specific types of trees and or grass that you think might fit the environment better, might develop and grow better, and or fight CO2 better, I mean, we're open to suggestions and ideas. We'll bring some to you, but I won't necessarily, and I'll talk to our consultant about it, you know, if they can have some of that data, but they may not have it for every single piece of green. But if you want to bring any of that data with you and talk through it, I mean, our green space people love talking green space, man. We can definitely talk about it.
I have two professionals with me, Seth Terry. He's doing a hydrogen project at the National Western Stock Show. I also have a professor from Metro State University in meteorology that I'll bring with me that we can share our concepts.
Sure.
Yeah, and Mark, I just want to throw out too, like the point of these two sessions is also not so much for us to present to you, but for us to listen to you.
Yeah.
So just you know, the last time we had our CAG meeting, we tried to share some things, but people want to talk, and it was difficult, right? It just was a little bumpy. So this is a chance for you to come and tell us what you're concerned about, what you're looking for, and get a chance to talk to the people who are specifically designing the space. Okay, so yes, please come with your info and your thoughts, and just let us know. That's what we're there for. And then
it's not limited. So bring other people, bring other neighbors or residents that you think will have a interest in this. Please, it's open. It's totally open. It's not a limited conversation.
Awesome. I said, and then the only other point, I guess before we open up for any other questions, is at the end of February, on February 23rd at Project Angel Heart, we are planning a community open house. Washington Street will be there. We will, at that point, we will have taken feedback from the earlier meetings. We will have presentations on what our green space will look like, on what the design will look like, on what sidewalks and the road's going to look like. Our design's going to be pretty far along. Our green space design is going to have undergone, at least be ready for its first presentation. It won't be done, but it'll be ready for kind of showing people where we think we're going after our first round of feedback here at the beginning of the month. So that is going to be an open house, and as well as Washington Street, we're going to try to pull in some of the other projects, the 48th Greenway, the 51st project will be there to talk about the 51st project some. So we'll have other projects will be there as well, but it'll be Washington Street's really trying to push this open house. So please come, bring anyone else you want to come, you know, who wants to hear about what's happening. We can talk details on anything other than green, including green space or other things as well.
Yeah, and you guys might notice February 23rd is our regularly scheduled CAG meeting. So we'll be replacing the CAG meeting with a public meeting that evening, okay? Just so everyone's not confused.
So from there, I'm open to any questions or anything else you guys might have Washington related. And then I guess I will speak real fast to you, Adrian. So I'm also the project manager for our 51st project that's going Logan to Emerson Street. So just to answer your earlier question, you know, a lot of what we're doing on Washington is trying to make things feel safer to walk, to traverse, to have pedestrians on it. We're doing the same thing to 51st as we're looking at adding bike lanes to it, expanding the sidewalks, making it feel safer to walk and traverse. I won't say that this makes traffic go away, but I will say that as more people start walking in the area, it slows traffic down in the area significantly, and that does its own impact to car traffic. And that's about the best that I can speak to it. But I'm also working on 51st as well, and that is one of our goals, making sure that it's something that feels safe people, for bikes, for public transportation to traverse in this corridor.
This is, can I make a comment on that? This is Adrian. Well, you know that 51st is not flat from Broadway down to Washington, and it's quite a steep slope down there. The other thing, and I haven't made a comment about this before, but there are a couple of stop signs on 51st, and they, to be quite honest, they have no effect because it's like every day it's like a racetrack out there. I mean, cars are flying through the stop signs, and there's an actual school right there on 51st and Lincoln and Laredo Hall. And you can sit out there any time of the day and cars do not stop at all at any of the stop signs. So if, to increase the flow of traffic would be horrendous. I mean, it would almost be a crime because I'm waiting for an accident. I mean, a severe accident to occur because of the speed of the cars up and down it, and we get semis up and down there all day and every day as well. So any reduction of traffic would be a huge help. If you can make 51st for access only, meaning that it's only for access to people, for residences and for businesses, and for not a throughfare, which is what it is right now. It's a throughfare from Washington up to Broadway.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. And like I said, my project's only doing Logan to Washington Street as part of this project. But I think between my project coming in, starting to install some of these traffic calming and safety measures, and a lot of those things that Walter talked about earlier, you can see the planning effort. There's a lot of work coming into this area, and 51st is a corridor that will have a lot of work. And as these improvements come and happen, it starts calming traffic and making things more controlled on the street. So your message is heard. I understand that there's a lot of traffic, and I can't tell you that no traffic will be there, but I can tell you that we're working on trying to install better safety measures, better calming measures to ensure that things are done safely.
I mean, if you can reduce it, that would be, that would be the best for all the residences in this part of Globeville. That would be the best measure because it is the pollution, the noise, the vibrations. I mean, it's really bad right now, and that's because there are no traffic lights, and it's basically uncontrolled. There's no control there. So if you want to make it a bike lane, that's fine. I can't see bikers going up and down. 51st, it's a steep gradient. It's a very steep gradient up and down there.
As we install these things, they come with all kinds of other signals. I mean, look at Washington Street, right? This started as, a sidewalk was a priority, and we're replacing every signal. I mean, green space is coming in, and that's the goal of these projects.
Yeah. And the only other comment I have to make on the link, the Washington, 51st Washington, if you can manage to put in a left turning lane off 51st onto Washington, because right now it's just it's two ways. It's just a two-way street going 51st down to Washington. So it means that if you've got a car in front of you waiting to turn left and you want to turn right, you can't go. So if you can incorporate that in your plans to put in a left turning lane from 51st onto Washington, that would help tremendously. That's my only other comment.
Part of the project.
Thank you, Adrian.
So, mission accomplished. That is part of 51st.
Okay, thank you.
And Adrian, just
Thank
to
you.
add in really quickly, I have been working with the Laredo folks on some of the issues around Broadway and 51st. So I will definitely note the kind of enforcement challenges with those stop signs there, and just make sure that it's on our radar.
So maybe now would be a good time to turn it over to Jim on the 51st reconfiguration.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Mark. My project is east of Washington, so I wasn't going to be able to help much on that. So I'm glad Mark was here. I'm the engineer that did the design for the Heron Pond project that's currently under construction. Doing a lot of excavation out there, and And we've also improved 51st and east of us. As of last summer, the bridge was installed over the river to the east of Emerson there. So we've created a couple new connections from the South Platte River Trail. And when our streets got finalized east of Emerson, there was a gap between Washington and Emerson. That 2-block stretch now had some really great bike and ped facilities, and there was no way to get to Washington except for heading down a 2-lane road. So anyone who's been in the area the last, say, several weeks, 4 weeks maybe, they've probably seen the work that we've been doing out there. You can see the bridge just opened yesterday. So if you have a chance, go swing by. It's pretty awesome looking. So I would admit. So yeah. So what we've been doing is trying to make that connection safe between Emerson and Washington. So is the graphic on the next page? Yeah. If your eyes will draw to the graphic, what we've done is from Washington added a 10-foot asphalt sidewalk on the south side of 51st Avenue. And we've separated with a lot of we call them candlesticks, the plastic poles, and some barriers at the gas station there. We're really separating it at Washington Street from the traffic because as trucks and cars are making this new movement, we really wanted to keep everything safe. And then as you head further east, you're more comfortable with the fact that there are pedestrians there. So as we headed east of, really by the time you got to Clarkson, that's when we converted it to a 1-lane road because the buildings and the existing frontage there is too tight to keep it a 2-lane road and sidewalk. So we extend that all the way to Emerson and then have 2-lane traffic as you head over to the bridge, and then similar working the opposite direction. If you came down the bridge, you would get to Emerson, and now you've just encountered a 1-lane road. So we were directing traffic up to 52nd and out there, which honestly, I've done that a lot when I was out visiting the site. So it's a little better intersection, I feel, until Mark's project comes along in 2025 and does the real improvements, which is a good point. This is only intended to be there for 2 to 3 years. And then when Washington Street comes along, it'll get the more traditional and wider appeal with 2-lane traffic, sidewalk on each side of the road, and an amenity zone. So that's going to be the full build out. That's going to be much more comfortable to pedestrians and bikes and traffic itself. So really looking forward to when Mark can put a bow on this and make it safer and better for everybody out there. So, oh, Chris, you already answered the question. So fast. So it's short and sweet, but it's really just a 2-block improvement, really just connecting it until we can make the full picture and the better product. Yeah, it's just getting us from here to there. So I guess if there are any questions, I can kind of open it up. So.
Questions, comments?
Hi, this is Adrian again. If nobody else has a question, can I see the previous slide, please? Just to the Emerson, where you're talking about Emerson. Oh, I got it. It's on the east side. No, the reason why I wanted to look at that is because 52nd, which I think goes through a bunch of warehouses right there, that would be, from my perspective, would be a far better route to go from Washington to Broadway than 51st, if you don't mind me saying, because it's, that's pretty industrial right there. Isn't that all warehouses?
From Washington to Broadway, well, I think you encountered the railroad tracks.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you go over the railroad tracks on 51st. So, what I'm saying is that area is already industrial, like it's warehouses right there from 51st all the way up Washington. I don't know how far north I mean, it may even go up as far as 57th or 50, not quite as far as 58th, because, well, there is a lot of warehouses up to 58th. So if you could utilize 52nd instead of 51st, it would save me a lot of heartburn. Let's put it like that. And it would make most sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for all your comments and your passion for this issue. We really appreciate it, and I hope that you see we are listening very carefully to you. And thanks to Mark for that little piece of information about the stoplight. I think that probably was helpful to you. Any other questions, Armando?
Can you recap what's happening at Carpio San Getty Park? I know there's a lot of construction going on in there, but you can just give us a quick update.
Sure. We kicked off last August, I believe. The project itself is primarily in the south half of the project area. Heller open spaces to the north, which is currently getting a new overlook, which will be tied together with some new trails. But in the main Carpio Sanguinetti, we're adding a water quality pond, which will treat 600 acres of the industrial land to the west of us. So that water that comes in all dirty and just currently goes to Heron Pond and then to the river will get slowed down and take out a lot of the pollutants and sediment and stuff. So that's a pretty big improvement. That's really kind of my passion and what I do. But on top of that, we're collaborating with parks, and we're getting them set up for the next phase, which will begin in about a year. And we're setting them up with new sanitary and water and new roadway in 51st and Emerson, so we can get that park project really in the ground in 2024, and then hopefully in 2025 we have that open with one of the most amazing parks in town. I guarantee it. So it's going to be great. So is
it just going to be green space? There won't be like an amphitheater or anything like that in there?
There's a plan for a pavilion, amphitheater, the 2 parking lots. There's a big walkway, pollinator garden, a bunch of new trails, and an awesome playground. We've got a lot in the works on that. So if you go to the website for the park project, just do denvergov.org/Heron Pond. I think that's a direct link, and you can check it out. I'll double check that and put it in the chat here in a minute. But that'll kind of give you a lot of information on what the plan is, and we can always follow up if you want to reach out to any of these folks here or me directly. We can definitely get you some more information.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Armando. Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Any more questions for Jim? Any other questions about 51st at all?
It looks like Eric has his hand up.
I had a real quick question, and I hope this doesn't take up too much time, but I just found this website. It's called Terminal at 51st. Is that a group of businesses or something that you guys are involved with, or do you know what that is? I can send a link.
Eric, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to send it, that'd be fine.
I'll send it to Chris in an email because it's kind of, I'm not even sure what it is, so I don't even know if I want to put it in the chat.
Sure.
Thanks.
That sounds great. Thank you.
One last comment. During the Osarco cleanup, they only focused in on residential properties. None of the properties that were identified as commercial or industrial never got remediated, or none of the topsoil was removed. My question to you, as you go through this redevelopment from 47th to 52nd or 51st, will all that topsoil be removed out of the neighborhood?
I can't speak to that directly. I know when it goes through our development services, the DDPHE, Department of Public Health and Environment, would be looking at it. I don't know what constraints that they would be held to as a private development, but I'm pretty confident it would get flagged, and they would have to do their own studies and improvements. But that's not quite my wheelhouse, so I don't want to overspeak on that.
Okay.
Yeah, and Armando,
This is Adrian. This is
Oh.
Adrian again. I'm just going to make a comment. It should be tested. How are you going to test it? Because as I think it's Armando, it is very contaminated out there. So that's just a word to the wise. It's a very unhealthy environment.
Beth, do you want to jump in here?
Oh, yeah, no, that's okay. I was just saying, I don't believe there's anybody on the call tonight that could speak to private development and their specific requirements. But I agree with you. Yeah, that's something that probably could be followed up. It's probably a question for planning and development.
We'll bring it up and get an answer.
Yep.
I may have misunderstood, but I think they said from 47th to 52nd. So maybe Armando was speaking to the Washington Street project, if Mark is able to speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I can actually speak to both a little bit. So for Washington Street, for our city projects, we test all the soil that in the area. So for the Washington and the first projects, all that material will be disposed of in a way that works with DDPHE. We have kind of a specific management plan on how we maintain it. For private development, they have a similar process they have to follow. They have environmental clearances they have to get through DDPHE as part of the zoning process, and so they have to test and basically prove what condition the soil is in. So there's processes involved in both to ensure that the soil is either clean in that specific area or it's disposed of properly.
Is there somewhere we can go as residents to look to make sure that they're held to those standards?
Ooh, that's a good question. That is a good question. I don't know. I know we don't. That's probably a DDPHE question. I know for our construction projects, that's not information we typically have posted anywhere. Not that we couldn't share it, I don't think, but that's a good question. I'd have to ask some of our environmental health people.
Thank you.
Yeah, Andy or Andrew, we could follow up on that. I'm curious now, so look into that.
Any other questions?
Eric, did you have another question, or was your hand up from earlier?
Nope, sorry, I just left it up. My bad.
Okay. Any other, I think, just a reminder that the next meeting, we have a community open house. It's going to take the place of our CAG meeting. It'll begin at 4:30. It'll be in person at Project Angel Heart, 4:30 to 6:30. And don't forget also the amenity coffees that Mark is hosting. So those are earlier in February. The information feedback that he gathers, his team gathers in early February will really set much of the discussion at the community open house, and the plans really taking what they're hearing from community and bringing it into a discussion at the community open house. Anything else? Let's see, Sunny, can we repost the times? Can we just go back to that slide, Kat, so that we can see? There it is, Sunny.
Just as a reminder, we'll be sending out an email with information for the virtual meeting, how to log on for that, and then a reminder of the times and place for the Prodigy meeting.
And just remember, anybody can attend, so please invite any neighbors or residents who you feel would be interested in presenting their opinions on sort of the amenities zone.
Yeah, and I was just going to add one more thing. Prodigy has a couple locations. So the location that we'll be meeting at, and we'll note this in the email, is the Globeville location. And if anyone is concerned about transportation to the meeting, the Globeville connector is a great free way to get there. And we will have interpretation services in person as well as at the virtual meeting.
Okay, any other comments, community updates that anyone would like to share?
Kyle, I see your hand is raised. Is that current?
I wanted to apologize. I put the wrong date in for the 4995 community meeting at Project Angel Heart. That is going to be on February 8th from 5:30 to 7:30, and I did update it in the chat. So my apologies.
No
Thank
worries.
you.
Thanks for mentioning that. And in that follow-up email, I'll make sure all of these events that we've talked to, just a quick summary of all of them so that everybody has the correct information to reference.
Beth, Mark, Jim, anything else? Walter? Chris?
All good.
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, well, we ended a little bit early, but we'll give you part of your life back. So thank you for being with us tonight and look forward to seeing you early February and then at Project Angel Heart on the 23rd. Thanks, everybody, for spending your evening with us.
It looks like Maria has a.
Maria, did you have a question?
Es más un comentario o pedirles un poquito de ayuda.
Okay.
Es sobre el conector que hay para transporte. Yo estoy pidiendo a ellos que extiendan más la línea de donde pueden recoger personas, porque el límite de Swansea es en la calle Albion, aquí en la pasando la Colorado, es el límite de Albion. Y realmente hay un edificio donde yo vivo, que se llama Park Hill Station, y es un edificio de más de 300 departamentos. Hay muchas familias que también necesitan el transporte para ir al mercado y pues para otras cosas. Entonces yo he pedido a ellos ya por correo electrónico a Nest que extiendan más sería nada más una calle cruzando la Colorado, atrás de las tiendas que hay, como el Qdoba, el Popeye, todas esas tiendas, enseguida están los departamentos. Entonces, hay muchas personas que van al mercado a Commerce City, que van a Save a Lot. Entonces, creo que ese transporte ayudaría mucho a este espacio, que todavía es 8216. Es el límite de Swansea. Entonces, si ustedes pueden apoyarme con algo, o a lo mejor hacer un comentario por ahí a alguien de la ciudad o a alguien que esté más involucrado con eso, me ayudarían mucho. A mí y a mi comunidad de los departamentos. Gracias.
Thank you, Maria. And Chris will follow up with your comment. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you for flagging that for sure.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a good evening.